Hello and welcome to the 2025 Women's Collegiate Volleyball season. My name is Junior Calton and I am a PAVO nationally certified official, and I am also a member of the Wooster-Ashland Board of Officials, which is an organization of about 100 volleyball officials across Northern Ohio. I'd like to welcome you to the Introduction to CRS, or Challenge Review System, for coaches. And it's important to note that the Ohio Athletic Conference, or the OAC, is asking member institutions to implement challenge review system for the 2025 season. And so part of this video is to help educate at a basic level to coaches an introduction to the challenge review system, because you might have questions. What's challengeable? What's not? What type of systems are out there? How are referees going to respond to this as well? And it's important to note that the super or coordinator of officials for the OAC is Diane Place. So this video was made in cooperation with Diane Place, and is intended to be sent out to the coaches within the Ohio Athletic Conference. And again, some credits for this video. Again, Diane Place and the OAC. NCAA volleyball, we're going to be using some rule-based. We're going to be showing how to access the rules and things like that, rule interpretations. Also PAVO, which is the Professional Association of Volleyball Officials, and then the Wooster-Ashland Board of Officials. All of your volleyball officials typically will be a member of PAVO and will belong to one of many local boards. For instance, the Wooster-Ashland Board of Officials covers a lot of Northern Ohio. The Southwestern Ohio Board of Officials would cover a lot of Central and Southern Ohio. We're going to show you how to access some resources and things like that, but just know that this video was in cooperation with the Wooster-Ashland Board of Officials and with the blessing of Diane Place, the coordinator of officials with the OAC. I'm going to spend about 45 minutes today in this video. Again, it is meant for you to watch whenever you can. We're going to talk a little bit about systems that are available. Many coaches have asked the question of, what do I use? Do I use what my school uses for basketball? Do I purchase a new system? Things like that. We're going to show you different resources. Typically, I would show resources at the end, but I want to get that out early in this video to show you exactly where you can access the current rules, some manuals, and some training documents that you might be able to use to share with you, and your staff, and people that might be working at your home institution, helping you implement the challenge review system. We're going to talk about the NCAA requirements to have a challenge review system in place for your matches. We're going to talk about rules. For instance, what is challengeable, what's not. We're going to talk about when you can challenge, and we're going to talk about techniques and procedures for challenges. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about game day. These are some best practices to help you manage your game day a little bit better. It's important to note that as coaches, we want you 100% focused on your players during a match. And so there's some things that we will suggest that will help your game day be a little bit better, in terms of you not having to worry about if the system's up, if the system's down. We'll provide some tips on that as well. And just overall, we'll provide some best practices and helpful hints. Again, kind of take what you want out of this video, leave the rest. But again, if you have questions, we're happy to answer any of those questions that you have. So, systems, there's different types of challenge review or video replay systems that are out there. And I'm just going to mention 4 of these systems. There's probably 30 different plus video replay systems that are out there. The first one I wanted to highlight is what's called Hawkeye Innovations. If you've ever seen an international match, this is the system that FIVB uses, what is used in the Olympics. And as of last year or this year, I believe the Southeastern Conference has entered a partnership with Hawkeye. Not only does it provide some real high quality video cameras and monitor, this also allows for the sensors to have graphics. So if you've ever seen a like an international match where they do a replay and it shows the graphic of the ball landing on the court with where the shadow's at, this is a system that does that. Very expensive systems. And again, we're not telling anybody in the conference you have to buy this system or the other. I don't believe at this point the Ohio Athletic Conference is mandating a particular system that you're going to use. Some conferences do dictate that at the Division I level, but usually with Division II, Division III, they kind of leave it up to each host institution on what system you want to use. DV Sport is another system, and it's probably most common in the world of volleyball. It's very predominant at the Division I level. For instance, the Big Ten Conference uses DV Sport. The Big Ten Conference also mandates certain camera placements. So a team going to a different facility, they should expect to see the exact same type of views on their system, it's easier on the referees. From one venue to the next, they know that there's going to be, maybe 6 stationary line cameras, slash cameras, end zone cameras, things like that. And usually, the bigger conferences, you're going to have up to 10 to 15 replay or cameras that are able to be fed into the system. And sometimes you have TV matches where those broadcast feeds and those angles can be fed into the system as well. The NCAA championships at all levels use DV Sport. The Mid-American Conference or the MAC uses DV Sport. So obviously, Toledo, Bowling Green, Akron, Kent State, OU, places like that. They're mandated by the conference to use DV Sport. And I would say that most Division I conferences that mandate challenge review use DV Sport. And then I'm not the technical guy. If you have questions about any of these systems or capabilities, I would suggest reaching out to these companies. They all have sales directors that would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Echo Replay is another system that has come on board really within the last few years, and it's a really fantastic system. It is an iPad-based system, and it is a lower cost than what you would find with DV Sport. The feedback that I've got from that is it's very easy to hook different types of cameras and stuff up to that. And if you're looking for a cheap alternative, not or inexpensive alternative than Hawkeye or DV Sport, you might consider Echo Replay. If any of you know Chris at Hillsdale College has had a challenge review. I believe this is going to be their 3rd or 4th year. They use Echo, and it's a fantastic system. It allows the referees to, using the iPad, they can pinch and zoom and move forward, backwards. And I believe Wick at the University of Findlay also uses Echo as well. So if any of you know those coaches, feel free to reach out to them and ask them questions. Another system is NewTek 3Play. It's very common out there. It's also used a lot in the basketball arena. But again, there are many other systems out there, and you may be using a system that your basketball system uses. So whatever that system might be, I just wanted to share, these 4 other ones because you see a lot of these out there in the volleyball world. I do want to spend just a brief moment on what's called frames per second. So frame rate usage is very important. Volleyballs move very quickly, 50, 60 miles an hour. And the higher frames per second that we can get some of these cameras embedded into the challenge review, it makes things a lot easier. And a frame per second is basically how many times per second does the video take a snapshot of the image. How many times does it record? So 30 frames per second, and you would think that sounds like a lot, but when you're talking about volleyballs moving at 50, 60 miles an hour, a lot of times you don't get the best image when you're trying to play it in slow motion, and especially determine those little micro touches, or whether the ball, barely hit the line, didn't hit the line. I will say 30 frames a second, very pixelated when you zoom in. It might not catch the ball hitting the floor. So a ball that is in the air heading towards a line, and the very next frame has it airborne on the other side of the line, and that tells you that it's not catching it when it actually hit the floor. And remember, in challenge review, we don't make assumptions on the video. It has to be indisputable evidence in order to overturn a call. So we can't say, well, if the ball is here and the ball is here, it had to have gone here. But again, you can't make that assumption with videos because the video doesn't accurately show angles and things like that with the trajectory of the volleyball. There's also what's called a watermelon effect, and you might experience this if you have a system that has 30 or 60 frames per second. And that's where the ball looks more of like a blur on some frames because it's moving so quickly that when it took that snapshot, it's actually the ball, instead of being nice and round, it really looks like a watermelon. And it's stretched out with a blurred image in the middle, and it makes it harder to determine whether there was a contact or where the ball hit the floor, things like that. 60 frames per second is this is the lowest frame quality that we see with a lot of Division One conferences. And keep in mind, a hard-driven ball, you still might miss that ball hitting the floor. It could be in between frames. There is a smaller watermelon effect. 120 frames per second is probably this is starting to become standard on a lot of review systems, and cameras are getting made better quality now. The systems themselves are starting to handle these higher frame rate cameras with that. So, and then you've got 240 frames, 1,000 frames, all of that stuff. And again, the frames per second is going to depend on the system that you're using. For instance, if you have DV Sport and you want to go buy a 500 frame rate camera, you have to make sure that DV Sport can handle that. And so I would talk, if you're going to purchase a system, make sure you have all of your ducks in a row. I will tell you that the sales reps at any of those companies are very, very, very knowledgeable. If you talk with them and say, hey, we really want to use maybe the Echo system, the Echo people can really tell you, hey, what existing cameras do you have? Let's see if we can use some of your existing cameras and plug it into this system. And and they can kind of custom work with you. Each institution might be a little bit different. Also, I want to note that volleyballs move much faster than basketball. Probably at any time during a basketball match, the ball is not moving 50 to 60 miles an hour. And so in slow motion, it is easier to see a basketball replay than it is a volleyball replay because of the speed of the ball. And I know I've talked with a couple of coaches within the OAC, and the comment was, well, we're probably going to start with using whatever we have in-house already for basketball, and that's perfectly okay. But be critical of your system. When you get it out, explore it. Just note that there might be some pain points on what you can and can't see depending on the speed rate of your camera. So some important resources that we want to share with you, the NCAA rulebook. Hopefully you have either a printed rulebook or a downloaded rulebook. And if you have that rulebook, by the way, just Rule 18 pertains to the challenge review system. So if you're new to challenge review, please read that. It'll explain black and white what the rules are. And in the back of the rulebook, many don't know this, but the rulebook is really two sections. The first part is the black and white parts of the rule, and the last part of the rulebook are associated interpretations and cases. So look at those because there's going to be a lot of different interpretations and cases on the challenge review rules. Also, the NCAA volleyball rules of the game page. I'm going to show you that here in just a second. And on that, you can actually access, there's a YouTube video published by NCAA Resources. It's a 13-minute video on the 2025 women's volleyball rule video, and it just shows a couple new interpretations and some points of emphasis for this season. Also, the PAVO, Professional Association of Volleyball Officials, on their website, there's some key things you can access from that page. That's not just a website for volleyball officials. As a coach, as an institution, we have stuff out there on that website that anybody can use. And we encourage people to go to the website and find that. There's a CRS manual. It's a 40-some plus page document that is, we call it the CRS Bible. I highly recommend that you access that, print it out, maybe put it in a binder and have that courtside so that anybody can review that. And it might be important that if you have a really detailed question about challenge review, chances are it's in that CRS manual. There's also a CRS data collection form that is required for you to have printed out at the table. The scorer and assistant scorers will fill this out during the match and will hand it to the second referees after the match. So before I move in, I'm going to stop share this screen and I'm going to share, let me go to the website here. Let's start off with the NCAA Rules of the Game page. If you go to ncaa.org, O-R-G, not ncaa.com, but ncaa.org, under Media Center, you'll go to Playing Rules, and then you will find on the left-hand side the Women's Volleyball Rules of the Game. And this page, I would bookmark this page because any new interpretations that might come out will be posted on this page. And you can see here under updates, you've got everything from 2022. Rule changes, rule interpretations, newsletters, things like that, things that are going to affect the playing rules. Also under forms, you can see the data collection form. Let me just pull that up here because I'll show you this. This is a requirement that you have printed out and at the table. And during the match, the scorer and assistant scorer will record information on every single challenge. After the match, this is given to the second referee, and the second referee has a responsibility to enter this information online. PAVO and the NCAA collect data about each challenge, how long challenges are taken, what types of challenges are the most common? Are we reversing calls? Are we letting calls stand? I know at the Division I level, 87% of the time, we are seeing a call confirmed or reversed, which means that we have indisputable evidence that we've seen something in the video. And so not a lot of calls are coming out with play stands because they didn't see indisputable evidence. I will say that percentage goes down. The confirmed reverse goes down with the lower level of quality of cameras that you have. So if you don't really have very good cameras, a lot of your calls may be just stands. Hey, we couldn't tell what type of we couldn't tell definitively in the video, so the original call is going to stand. Also, the challenge review system manual. This is that 40-plus page document that I highly recommend that you have printed courtside. And I'm just going to point out it's got pictorials of what you might see with officials. It's also got some things. Maybe you're an event manager and you have a checklist for CRS, but it's also got some verbiage for announcers. This is really good if you have a gameplay announcer. You can print this out for them. You know, what do they say during a challenge? What can they say? When can they say it? So it's important that we take a look at that. I also want to show you the PAVO.org website, Professional Association of Volleyball Officials. And if you're at this page, under Rules and Tools, there is a section called Challenge Review System. And we're just going to click that, and you can see several documents, including that manual, data collection form, form instructions, and then also there's some basic things on, these are videos. We'll kind of jump back to this later in the video on after a challenge is accepted, what is the signal that you'll see from the referees. So these are good to watch. I'm going to jump back into the PowerPoint here. So those are some resources we want you to be aware of, and we're going to circle back to those at the end as well. So what kind of requirements does the NCA have by rule to offer challenge review? So let's kind of go through these one by one. These are the bare bones. If you don't meet these criteria, you're not eligible to have challenge review. But you have to have a system with at least one camera. I will tell you, it's best practice to have at least three. It's recommended that you have at least five. And if you have five, the best practice is to, hey, let's park a stationary camera on each of the four boundary lines and then add a net camera. But again, you're free to do, there's no rule that says you must have a net camera. There's no rule that says it must be on this end line. It's just basic that you have to have at least one camera. Now, a conference may come in and dictate, nope, you have to have these certain angles. But as far as I know, conferences like the Ohio Athletic Conference don't have that type of mandate, so they're leaving it up to you as the host institution. It is a requirement by rule to have a video technician available at the score table, available to interact with the second referee. This is the person who is overseeing the input and the collection of videos from the cameras. And it could be using DV Sport, using Echo, and it's somebody that's maybe hitting start, stop after each play, and responsible for loading video feeds. This person is required. This is not an optional position. To have CRS, this is a required personnel that you must add. And I put via headset. Sometimes that person is maybe in a different room of the gym where all of your video equipment is. If that's the case, they must be available by headset to the second referee. And just make sure that that is working if that's the case there. And also that video technician, there's a point of emphasis to get them there early. So ideally, we want all of the cameras set up, working live 1 hour before the match. Please do not wait until 5-10 minutes before the match and you're still working on setting up cameras or the video technician is just arriving. Please lay that expectation early. If you have that video technician, you have a 7 o'clock match, they need to be there by 6 o'clock. With our referees, we're telling referees instead of just showing up at 40 minutes on the clock like they normally would, if there's challenge review, we're asking them to show up at the 50-minute mark, really to go over the challenge review system, look at the videos, and to have a good pre-match conversation with the video technician. It is also required that that monitor be at the score table. So you cannot, the second referee must have that monitor, a dedicated monitor there. So you can't, the monitor can't be in a back room and the second referee is just via headset. If the second referee is talking via headset with the technician, that monitor still has to be out at the score table. If you're using the Echo replay system, it's iPad based. This is fine. That works as the monitor at the score table. You also have to have 2 green challenge cards. And this is, you can cut up some construction paper and laminate it. That's what most institutions do. Minimum of 3-inch by 5-inch, maximum of 4-inch by 6-inch. And a printed CRS data collection sheets. Again, I kind of showed that earlier, but that is a requirement to have printed and available courtside because during the match, that must be filled out by the scorer or the assistant scorer. And doesn't matter if you're using electronic scoring or not. That physical piece of paper must be filled out during the match and be sent with the second referee after the match. All right, so let's get into rules a little bit. And again, you probably are aware of some of these. We're gonna cover these very briefly. But each team has two challenges per match, and if the challenge is successful, meaning we go to the video and we see evidence to overturn a call, you keep the challenge. However, if the challenge is unsuccessful, meaning we have confirmed that the original call is the right call, or we don't have indisputable evidence to overturn it, so we're going to let the original call stand, you lose that challenge. Okay. And in set five, if your match goes to 5 sets, you get one additional challenge not to exceed a maximum of two. So going into set five, if you have two challenges still remaining, you don't get a third one. You have two that are available. However, if you're down to one and you go into set five, you get one additional. So now you have two. So, or if you have zero remaining at the end of the fourth set, you get one available to use in the fifth set. By rule, the second referee must see indisputable evidence to reverse a call. They can't make assumptions, stuff like that. They have to see it physically on video to overturn a call. If it's not indisputable, then the call is just going to stand. Now, there's really three different types of outcomes from each challenge, and I want to introduce this verbiage if you've never heard this before. But this is the exact verbiage from the rule books, from the rule book. So if a call is confirmed, that means we have seen video evidence that the call is correct. If the call is reversed, that means we have seen video evidence that the call is incorrect and the play is reversed. And remember, sometimes that could be a replay. For instance, there's a attempted pancake play, and if the referees call that ball down and you say, hey, I think my defender got that ball up, that is challengeable. And in that case, if the referee goes to the video and sees that the ball is up, the result there would most likely be a replay because now we have a whistle that stopped play and it shouldn't have. The third category is stands. That means just we've seen insufficient video evidence to confirm or reverse, so the play is going to stand. And the second referee is going to give a secondary signal, which means stands. If there's a complete system-wide mechanical failure, you have no videos are working, we obviously give the challenge back to the team and just say we can't do the challenge because all videos are down, and the challenge is retained. It's important to note if you have, for instance, 5 cameras and the second referee goes to review the video, and let's say one camera is not working, and the second referee would then immediately stop what they're doing in the replay, come back to you as the coach, and tell you which camera is down. And at that point, you have the option of either continuing the review with the other available views, or you can withdraw the challenge at that point. That's your only two options if that's the case. You can't say, well, what are you seeing on the other cameras? It's either hey, the inline camera I have is down. Do you want me to still take a look at the other views? I might have another look at it. Or you can withdraw the challenge and you can quickly decide whether you want to withdraw. Maybe that's the camera you are really relying that it's there. And if it's not there, you may say, you know what, I'm going to withdraw the challenge. So what can be challenged? I want to introduce an acronym to everybody, and it's TINAS, TINAS. And this is actually the order in which the popularity of each challenge. So the most commonly challenged thing is a touch. And we're going to go through a couple of subcategories here, but real quick, TINAS is touch, in out, net, attack line fault, and service line fault. So that's what TINAS stands for. But let's talk about touch. In its most purest form, it's a touch. It's a ball contacting the player before it lands out of bounds. It can also be two separate attempts to play the ball or 4 hits. It is not to be used for double contacts like, hey, that was a double. that is not challengeable. Okay. But two separate attempts to play the ball is certainly challengeable. For instance, two players are near each other and play the ball, and maybe the referees say, hey, that was a simultaneous contact. We're going to allow either player to play it again. So a player plays it, and you say, no, that was the same player hitting the ball twice on two separate attempts. That is challengeable. Four hits is also challengeable. Now, new in 2025, um, let me back up a little bit. Last year in 2024, the NCAA eliminated the double contact rule on a second contact unless the ball completely crossed the net or an opponent touched it before it or illegally touched it before it crossed the net. So um, we were not able to use the challenge review system to figure out who touched the ball next. And we realized last year that, you'd hear the referee whistle double and, uh, you know, you would want to challenge because the referee says, no, the blocker got it. And you say, no, 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 my attacker got it next, which makes that play legal. That was not challengeable last year, but this year in 2025, we can look at the challenge review system to determine who contacted the ball after the double. Okay. Um, Now let's say a double was not called, but there is a double that in your mind happened. And originally a no call happened because the referee thought their teammate touched it first before your blocker did. That can be challenged only if the first referee agrees that they would have called the double had that ball just crossed the net, or if they knew your blocker got it first. But it's required that referee have they would have predetermined that, you know what, I would have called that double had your blocker got it. But I thought the attacker got it. So that's challengeable. Who touched it next? Um, and remember, simultaneous contact after a double is meaning legal play. There's no fault. We're going to play on. You can also challenge whether or not a player contacting a ball affects a decision on an illegal attack, illegal block, or a reaching over violation. And I'm gonna mention this probably two or three times in this video, but the position of the ball or the position of the hands is not challengeable. So the position of the ball, whether it's completely above the height of the net, partially below, all the way below, or whether that ball's in the plane of the net or not, that is not challengeable. Also for maybe an illegal blocker, are their hands reaching above the height of the net or are they below? That is not challengeable. So on certain plays involving an illegal attack, a reaching over, an illegal block, the referees must predetermine whether or not the ball was in the plane, not in the plane, above the net, below the net, and whether hands were reaching above or not. Um, the only thing that can be looked at in this situation is whether or not there was contact with the ball. And I'm going to give you a good example. Let's say, for instance, your blocker is whistled for reaching over the net. Okay. During the review, we cannot look at the position of the ball, whether it was in the plane, or whether your blocker was reaching over, or whether they were reaching above the height of the net. The only thing that you can challenge in that situation is that your blocker didn't touch the ball. So if we go to the review and realize your blocker didn't touch the ball, then we would most likely have a replay in that situation. But again, even if the video shows that, hey, that ball was kind of in the plane of the net, that can't be subject to any part of the review there. Also new this year is interference above the net. So where a blocker reaches across and maybe contacts the setter's hands prior to or during the setting action. This used to not be challengeable, and referees would challenge that, hey, you called my blocker for reaching over. And we go to the video and realize that, oh my gosh, the blocker didn't touch the ball. So what do we do there? because a interference above the net is not a valid outcome for a replay. So we kind of added it in there. So you can challenge that, hey, my blocker did or didn't touch the ball. And if you go look at the video and realize that the blocker actually touched the hands, not the ball, and it was during or before the setting action, then that can be a valid outcome. In out category. And this is the ball rolled in or out according to the rules. So during the rules, look at what constitutes the ball in, what constitutes the ball out. Any part of that rule can be challenged, including pancake plays. It could be because the ball is out because the player is playing it completely off of the court. That is challengeable if you have a good camera angle to see that. Maybe the ball contacted or went over the antenna. That is challengeable as well. So the next thing is net. So whether or not a net fault occurred as defined by the rules is challengeable. And I say as defined by the rules because part of the rule here is the player in the act of playing the ball? And in the act of playing the ball means from the time I can, if I'm the player, from the time I commit to the playing action, meaning basically I'm getting ready to jump to go block the ball, for instance. Uh, the play happens, I land, and until I transition to the next play, that's all part of the playing action. So, for instance, referee calls a net violation, and you say they're not part of the playing action. And the referee goes to the review monitor, realizes that the player had landed and they were turning to go to the next play when they brushed the net. In that case, they would be deemed not part of the playing action and the call would be reversed. It also includes players touching the antenna. Attack line fault. This was added several years ago, and I think it was a great addition to the challenge review system. We can now take a look at back row player or an illegal attacker, the takeoff position. Are they on, in front, or completely behind the attack line when they took off? That is challengeable. Now keep in mind, remember, the position of the ball is never challengeable. Okay, so it's say if the back row player steps on the line as she's going to attack the ball, recognizes it, and kind of doesn't hit it at her full extension of her arm, but maybe it's down here by her head, and the referee's predetermined that hey, part of that ball is below the height of the net, therefore there's no illegal attack. That's not challengeable now. It's not challengeable because the only thing you can challenge in this category is the takeoff point, the feet. And if the referees have said it doesn't matter whether she was on the line or not because the ball was completely below the height of the net, then it would not be challengeable. This also includes the libero's feet or foot during a takeoff point while overhand setting. And again, just a reminder, there you go. Position of the ball or the hands is not challengeable. Service line fault, foot fault, that is challengeable. So whether or not a foot fault occurred, and you can review the end line or the sideline. So for instance, was a player completely outside the service zone, meaning completely beyond the outside of the hash mark during their takeoff for service. That is challengeable. A couple of things that referees can also view is the sequence of faults. There's a caveat. As long as you can see which fault happened first, as long as one of those faults is in a challengeable category. An example is maybe the second referee calls a center line fault, and you say, nope, the ball was down before that center line fault happened. That is challengeable because the in is a challengeable category. Center line faults are not challengeable. But the referee could look at that review, and on these review systems, you can pause one camera, go to the other camera, and it's at the same moment in time. So the referee goes and takes a look at the net contact and realizes that maybe it happened just before the ball hit the floor. So the original call would be the center line fault would stand. Okay. Bundled items. So I've been around for quite a while, and I've been using challenge reviews since they've introduced it 8 or 9 years ago. In the first year or two, we did not have the bundled items. So at the end of a rally, there's a lot of things happening. There could be a potential net. You think the blocker might have touched it, and it landed near the line, and you had to decide as a coach which one of those categories did you want to challenge. Um, well, the collective experience of everybody those first couple of seasons said, you know what, on especially the play ending stuff, we need to be able to look at a few things. So there's three things that can be bundled, and which gives the referees the ability to look at three things instead of the exact category that you're wanting to look at. And that's touch, in, out, and net. So when you challenge either a touch, in, out, or a net, the referees can look at the other two. And for instance, you want to challenge that the other team touched the ball, then you think it probably landed out, but you're not sure. The referees can go look at it and say, you know what? Actually, it doesn't matter. The ball landed in. They can look at that in out, so it doesn't matter. They can also look at a net fault as well. And the referees should be pretty good about recognizing when the bundle is in play. But it's good practice for you as a coach to say, hey, I'm challenging that they touch the ball, but you're also going to look at the line and the net, right? And just kind of confirm that. Remember, referees, a lot of referees will be new to challenge review this year, especially within the Ohio Athletic Conference. So it's a good reminder for them as well that there are certain things that can be bundled. So having a cordial conversation with the second referee will go a long way, and you might be able to help them, recognize that, hey, these things can be in a bundle. Now, these three bundled things we can take a look at during the same playing action. So the same playing action is considered from the last contact that sends the ball over the net and until the ball is received by the opponent or it lands on the court, not including a block. So it goes from the attacker all the way to the receiver, including whether it hit the floor, whether there was a net, whether there was a touch, in case the ball landed out. Most of the time, you see these bundles at the end of a play. So the attacker was the attacker in the net. Did the ball go over the antenna? Did the blocker touch it? Did the defender touch it? And whether it landed in or out. And was there a net violation in there? But it can also be mid-rally. So just in the course of a rally, maybe you think there was a net in there next to a pancake play that's happening over here. Well, the referee in that instance can take a look at the pancake play and just before the ball crossed the net, whether there was a net violation as well. After a review is completed, a second review can take place by the team that did not win the challenge, and you can review a previous fault in the same rally. Now, if you lose a challenge, you can't then re-challenge. But if a call is reversed, something like that, the other coach can then challenge. So here's an example. You're the coach for Team A, and you want to challenge that the ball was out. And they go to the review monitor, they show it was out, so the call is reversed, and you get the point. However, the other coach now wants to challenge that your setter was in the net earlier in the rally. That is an acceptable challenge as long as it happened prior to the sequence of the first challenge that we looked at. What is not challengeable? Again, this is going to be the fourth time that I've probably said it, but the position of the ball at the net, whether it's above or below, completely above, partially below, that makes a difference on whether something is an illegal attack. In the plane, not in the plane. That makes a difference on whether somebody's reaching over or whether it's a back row block, but the position of the ball is not challengeable. Even if the referees go to the review monitor to review a potential net and they just happen to see, oh man, that ball's not in the plane of the net, they can't rule or nothing with that challenge can be dictated by the view on that. The position of the hands on a blocker, For instance, you have a back row setter that is standing on the ground, but they're reaching at the top and, trying to deflect an attack coming over, and the ball hits them, and the referee calls an illegal block. And you say, well, she's not jumping, which is not part of the rule. It's whether or not part of her hands are reaching above the height of the net. But that's not challengeable. Position of the hands, referees predetermine that, whether or not her hands are above or below the height of the net. Center line faults are not challengeable. So if you disagree with the center line fault, that is not challengeable at this time. Internationally, that is challengeable, but NCAA, it is not challengeable. So if you want to change that, there's a rules committee that you can provide feedback to. Also on the rules of the game page, you can suggest a rule change. But the center line faults right now, not challengeable. Multiple contacts from a single attempt to play the ball are not challengeable. That's a really long way to say double. If you feel like the second contact was doubled and it crossed the net and the referee doesn't call it, you can't challenge that. The only thing that you can challenge in those situations is if there's a question on who hit the ball next after the double. So a double that clearly crosses the net that is either called or not called is not challengeable. But a double that is going into the plane of the net and whether or not the blocker or attacker got it next, that piece of it is challengeable. Caught or thrown balls or prolonged contact. Most of you will call this a lift, but that is not challengeable. So when can you challenge? So after the rally, you have to have either lost the rally or there was a replay where you argue that something happened earlier than that replay that would have given you the point. So ball rolls on the court, referees give a replay, and you say, but they were in the net at the very beginning of the play. You can challenge that. You must request the challenge before the first referee authorizes the next serve. Okay, even if there's an intervening timeout. So, for instance, there's a close play, and maybe you call a timeout. At the conclusion of that timeout, you can still request a challenge as long as the referee hasn't authorized the next server. Okay, usually without a timeout, there's a 10 to 12 second window. So in that 10 to 12 seconds, you got to determine as a coach whether or not you want to use one of your challenges. So you will find programs that will start asking their players, did you touch that? Did you not? And I will tell you, in my experience as an observer of the game of volleyball, challenge review promotes very much honesty from players to their coach. Like, oh yeah, I touched that ball or I didn't touch that ball. Because if they say I never touched that ball and we go to the review and it shows they touched that ball, and you're going to end up losing that challenge. So encourage your players to be super honest with you about whether or not they contacted the ball, things like that. But you have a 10 to 12 second window to determine that. So some best practices. Look, if you're new to challenge review, recognize that maybe the referee might be new to challenge review as well. But if you need to ask some clarifying questions, start that conversation right away with the second referee. Any clarifying questions that you need. Have possession of that green card. Most coaches will, on a potential situation, they'll kind of hover around where the green card is. It's usually at the end of the scoring table, right before the bench. And you're collecting information from your players, maybe from your assistant coaches, maybe you're talking with the second referee. But in pretty short order, you need to determine whether you're going to challenge or not. And to challenge, you just raise that challenge card to signify that you will challenge. Okay. And then any discussions that you have with the referee, the second referee, they must be courteous and they must be brief. So we can't go into this back and forth of, 30 seconds, 1 minute, and then you're still trying to determine whether you're going to challenge. At some point, the second referee is going to tell you as a coach, you can challenge or not, but if you're not challenging, we're gonna play right now. And that might speed you up in your decision making. And the more you do it as a coach, the more you'll get the idea of whether or not you should challenge or not. So, how do you challenge? Again, approach the area where the green card's at in case you need to pick it up and raise it to formally request the challenge. Ask the clarifying questions to the second referee. Uh, Start that discussion. It's okay to ask them, is this play challengeable? Or, hey, what part of that play is challengeable? Or if I challenge that, do you also look at the end line? You know, you can ask questions like that. Again, be courteous and brief. And it's okay to ask how many challenges you have. The referee should be able to give that to you at any time as well. Maybe it's late in the match and you're thinking, man, do I still have a challenge or do I have two left? And if the answer is, hey, you have two left, maybe you challenge, and maybe you don't want to waste a challenge on something you're not too convinced that the referees got wrong. Again, you raise a challenge card to signify you will challenge, and then the raising of the green card must be done prior to the next service authorization. And the second referee must acknowledge the request. And then it's important that that second referee they double whistle followed by the category signal. For instance, like in out is a category. And matter of fact, now's a good time. Let me stop share here. And I'm going to go over to, there we go. So now I'm going to show some signals. We're going to go through each of these categories and it's going to show what that looks like. So for in out, the referee is going to signal and hold up a fist and they're going to show the in signal. So let's watch that here. And again, you see tweet, referee holds the fist and shows the in. And this is on any part of the in out. So you want to challenge, hey, that ball hit the antenna. Well, you're challenging the out there. So the referee would tweet, raise their fist, and signal in. They would never signal out there. It's the in out category. It would be, we're challenging the in out category. Next, let's look at the touch. There's the fist raised, and then we just show the touch signal. So even on the back row stuff, whether or not the blocker or attacker touched it, this is the signal that you're going to see. This leads it off. We're challenging something in the touch category. Foot fault, we would just tweet, raise the fist, and then point to the service line. What about a net fault? Tweet, raise the fist, and then show the net fault violation. That's the category. Okay. And then let's take a look at the attack line fault. And we just showed the illegal attack signal there. So even if we're challenging a back row takeoff somewhere, a libero handset in the front zone, that would be the signal that we would use there. I also want to show something to you. For instance, let's say you want to challenge that the back row player stepped on the line, but the first referee says it doesn't matter because part of the ball's below the height of the net. You might see something like this. In this case, watch the second referee signal the challenge for an illegal attack, and then watch the first referee signal that part of the ball was below the height of the net. So there's the signal, and it's a little bit slow. I apologize. So there's that signal, and you watch the first referee signal that was below the net. So here it is, kind of in full speed. And the first referee says it doesn't matter, the part of the ball is below the height of the net. In that event, we would deny the challenge because it doesn't matter. And remember, the position of the ball is never challengeable. All right, let me jump back into the PowerPoint here. I've got a few more things to cover. Results of the challenge. So, hey, these acronyms are also CRS, by the way. It's either confirmed, reverse, or stands. So results of the challenge, confirmed means that we've seen video evidence that the correct call was made. in that event, you're going to see the second referee turn back around to the court. They're going to whistle and they're going to re-award the point. And in that event, the first referee doesn't do anything. It's the So at the end of a challenge, you want to be 100% focused on the second referee and watch what they signal. So after they whistle, if they are just, if you challenge and they come out of the challenge and all they're doing is re-awarding the point to the other team, that means they've confirmed the call and you lose the challenge. Reversed is if we see video evidence of different fault. So in this event, the R2 whistles, and then they're going to lead out with the new fault. So let's say we call the ball out, and you want to challenge that there was a net. So if we go to the video and it shows that there was a net, the R2 is going to whistle and then show the net fault and then the player number. And then the R1 and R2 would then re-award the point. And if the call stands, that means there's no indisputable evidence to confirm or reverse the call. The R2 is going to whistle and re-award the point, and then is going to give the call stands signal. And that's a sweeping motion from the shoulder and across the body. Yeah. So if they reward the point and then they kind of, let me stop share there so you can kind of see me there. If they reward the point and then they come and give a sweeping motion from their shoulder down to their waist, what that means is that the call is going to stand because there wasn't video evidence to overturn the call. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. The NCAA has clarified, hey, if we have to stop during a review and issue sanctions, what happens? Just know that, hey, whenever there's a sanctionable event, we're going to stop what we're doing and issue the card. And then in certain circumstances, we can either continue the review or maybe we terminate the review based on if we're giving a point. So if we give a yellow card to either team during a review, so we're in the middle of watching the monitor and somebody acts up on either side, we can stop. We're going to issue the card, get it recorded on the score sheet, and then we're going to turn around and resume the challenge review at the monitor. Okay. If there's a red card, which is a penalty point, and it's on the challenging team, and we are in the middle of the review will stop. The card is issued, recorded on a score sheet, and we award a penalty point. And in that case, we're going to terminate the review because we're now issuing a penalty point against you. And so the original call is just going to stand, but you get your challenge back, right? So we now have a new rally because a red card is a penalty point. So we're done with review. You get it back, and sorry, you're acting up. You get a red card, and the other team gets a point. If the red card is issued on the non-challenging team. So let's say you challenged that there was a net, and during that review, the other coach starts acting up, and there's a red card issued during that. The review stops, the card is issued, recorded on a score sheet, penalty point is awarded, and in that case, we would then resume the challenge review. We're not going to hold you hostage because that other coach decided to act up. We're still going to complete the review. The only time we stop the review there is if it's the challenging coach and it's a red card. If there's any sanction after the referee has completed the review result is always going to stand. So as a referee, we've determined what the outcome is going to be. And as we're getting ready to turn around, we have to give a red card. Doesn't matter in that instance. We've already determined that the call is either going to stand, get reversed, or it's confirmed. And again, you'll see some of these tables in probably a rule interpretation, but depending on whether you're the challenging team or non-challenging team, when is it sanctionable? Everything is at the time of occurrence, and what happens if it's after the review, before the review, whether it's yellow or red. So I'm not going to spend time on that. So I want to talk a little bit about game day, what to expect. And these are maybe some best practices that you can implement. So the day of the match, so with your system, so cameras are in place 1 hour before the match. And this is very much a recommendation because it will make your life a lot easier because during the match, you can focus 100% on your players. Um, the 1 hour before the match, the second referee monitor is up and ready. If you have e-scoring, make sure all of these e-scoring modules, whether they're VolleyRight, Data Volley, they all have e-scoring modules in them. Make sure those options are turned on. That's important because during a review, the original point must be recorded. So every once in a while, we'll run across a scorer or a scoreboard operator that says, "Oh, I'm just going to wait. I'm not going to record anything because we're challenging something." But by rule, you have to record the point. And then if we reverse something, then we can worry about changing it back. And the e-scoring modules, you do not hit back like you're undoing. Don't hit undo. There's a whole procedure for change. It's called a mind change process. So make sure your scorers are familiar with that. Excuse me. Personnel, make sure the video technician is on site and ready, 50 minutes to an hour before the match. And the referees are going to start arriving at the court at the 50-minute mark. And again, please do not tell your video technician to be there ready to go with the system up and ready to go. And make sure that your assistant scorer are present. They also need to have a timer or a stopwatch because it is their responsibility to time the duration of these challenges. So you or a video tech, maybe when the referees arrive to the gym, have a detailed conversation about the system. The referee's going to be a little bit nervous if they've never ran across your system before. So spend some time before the match to make sure the second referee is comfortable with the system, that you're comfortable as well. Supplies and forms, make sure you have the green cards, make sure you have the data collection form. That must be used. Some more best practices. So camera placement in the system. If you have stationary line cameras pointing to lines, make sure that they're not low enough in the gym where spectators walking or the bench could obstruct the view. Sometimes we see that where, hey, it looks great, but we realize in the middle of the rally there's spectators walking in front of it. So, make sure it's either high enough or it's in a spot of the gym that is unobstructed by the bench or spectators, somebody walking across it. For the net cameras, I will tell you it is best if it is off-centered. If you have a net camera and it is squarely in the middle of the net, a lot of times the antenna gets in the way of your view, and also you can't really see both sides very well. So, but if you place the camera off a little bit, a few inches, and have it looking off to the side of the net and through it, you can see both players approaching the net, and it's better. So. Also, for net cameras, a lot of those obviously are going to require cables that go down the post and back to the score table wherever the system is. Just make sure that those cables and cords are taped. And also, do you have four net cameras? Especially if you're using 3 or 4 cameras, maybe you don't have a dedicated camera on the attack line, but sometimes net cameras are a good look at the attack line as well. End zone cameras. If you have a potential touch call, like, hey, did that blocker touch that? A lot of times, most people would think that the best camera is the net cam. It's actually not. Most of the times, the best camera angle is the end zone camera. And you're looking either behind or in front of that blocker. That's usually the best touch for block touch calls. And then know your system. How long does it take to load plays? For instance, the Echo system, a really long rally might take 15, 20 seconds to load. If using a headset, maybe your technician is in the back room with all the video equipment and you're using a headset for the second referee to communicate. Make sure that that works and the batteries are charged and all that stuff because we can't be in the middle of the match and realize now the headset doesn't work. Personnel, we talked about, inform any game announcers about challenge review. In that challenge review manual, there's a suggested verbiage for announcers. I recommend handing that to them so that they know what to say during a challenge or when they should say something. There's suggested scripts, and then make sure the assistant scorer and scorer know the techniques and procedures, have printouts, and they should know the official mind change procedure in case of reversals. So again, I'm going to cover these resources. The rule book, a very important resource, the case book, the rules of the game page. Also, from the PADO website, you've got the CRS manual, that 40 plus page document. That's the Bible. That's how, that should be a great resource. And I would recommend printing that out, putting it in a binder, and label that binder like CRS info, stick a whole bunch of data collection forms in there, and just have make a binder dedicated to the challenge review system. Some important contacts for you. If you have any further questions or want some more information about challenge review, you can obviously get in contact with Diane Place. She's the coordinator of officials with the Ohio Athletic Conference. A couple other contacts for you. Katie Wagner is the board chair for the Wooster-Ashland Board of Officials. Jared Malott is the board chair for the Southwest Ohio Board of Officials. And then you can always use me as a resource as well if I happen to see you or shoot me an email. And again, I'm the rules interpreter with the Wooster-Ashland Board of Officials. But again, I want to thank everybody for watching this. I hope you've learned something and have a wonderful season.